Good evening, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Chilliteracy. Happy Wednesday. It is me. I have returned. How are we all doing? I believe we've got some thanks to people. Thank you very much, Quack, for the resubscription. Very much indeed. Thank you very much, Lady Mephistopheles, also. I think that was it, right? I didn't miss anyone, did I? No. But yes, hello. Oh, and the yawns begin. Ah, she returneth. She doth. For like 1 week, and then I'm going away again. I'm sorry, everybody. Yeah, the next few weeks after this are going to be sadly Lucy-less weeks, because I have so many I say so many, 4, 5 back-to-back work trips, so it's gonna be great, but unfortunately that does mean that I will not be around, sadly. Oof indeed. Yeah, I literally have like a day off between them, and sometimes not even a whole day. Yeah, the life of a freelance musician. Yay! Excuse me. Oh. But yes, how are we all doing? I hope we are all well. Hello, everybody. Who have we got? We've got Arian. Hello. We've got Smallcog. Hello. Parola. Hello. Queek. Greetings. Andy. Hello. Did I say Parola already? I did, yes. Lady Mephistopheles, greetings. Sam, obviously. Shiny Happy Goth, hello. Scream at me if I've forgotten someone else. Sam's own streaming might also continue to be disrupted. Yeah. Depends on Joey. Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a unreliable time for us both at the moment, because Sam's obviously got a cat who has a habit of sneezing blood everywhere, which is not ideal. But yeah, and obviously we want Joey to be okay. And I am here, there, and everywhere, which is also not particularly conducive to regular streams. Yes, everybody, hearts and cuddles and love for Joey. Life happens, life is important, this is true, but this is also life, and we, Chill Literacy is a labour of love, and we do enjoy it, and we do want to do it. So, you installed a mosquito net and then proceeded to cut through the net of the other screen. Oops! And you have a friend coming over tomorrow, so you're also cleaning a lot. Ah, joys, fun. What have I been doing today? Work, mainly. It's all been very exciting. Bought a new suitcase. Thrilling stuff. Wasn't able to collect it, though. Appreciating the nice weather, that is very true. It's been, I think, 24 degrees where I am in the UK today. And it's been very sunny and very spring-like. All the bluebells are out. Yeah, no, it's been really, really nice, actually. Finally feeling like spring. Oh, yeah. But it's quite nice because the temperature has been warm, and I'm never the biggest fan of it, with the temperature going above sort of 22 degrees, to be honest. But it has been quite a cool wind, which has been quite nice. You've been modifying jeans, Parola. Nice. Making pockets bigger, very important. And making a couple of legs shorter, also important. I know that feeling. 24 sounds like summer to you? Yeah, no, me too. You've taken the afternoon off work for the John stream, and then there wasn't one, so you came home and did a bunch of chores instead. Feel very accomplished. Excellent. That's always good. You've got very British weather there, there currently. Ah, is it raining by any chance, Lady Mephistopheles? Smallcog, it's already too warm. Yeah, I mean, here yeah, I think that was like one outlier of a day. I think it's going to get cooler again. Like tomorrow, I think, honestly. But yes, you were going to do stuff and ended up doing very little of it. but it's been chill. Well, that's good. Chill is important. Yeah, 2 huge thunderstorms Sunday and Monday. Ooh, exciting. We have not had anything. Oh well, I like thunderstorms, they're fun. But yes, do I have any other interesting and or fun news for you all? I don't think so. Apart from the fact that I'm just constantly yawning. I got very exciting. This week is my week of, I guess, doing sensible things, sensible grown-up things like buying a new suitcase and buying new running shoes and getting earplugs, because I have been a professional musician now for almost 10... Oh, God, no. Technically, yes. Almost 10 years. That's depressing. I meant to when I was a student, because I think I'm not sure whether it was my institution or whether there's a UK-based... I think they're a charity called Help Musicians that do various deals with like physios and hearing places and all that kind of stuff for musicians. And when I was studying, they had a deal with, I think it was like a Harley Street audiologist for molded earplugs for musicians, where you could get them for like 30% off or something like that, or yeah, just a much lower price, and I just never did it, and yeah, I kept on thinking, oh, I should do that, and just never got round to it. Well, to be fair, didn't have the money all the time either, because they were still quite expensive, especially for students. And then, you know, everybody since has, well, not everybody since, quite a few of my colleagues have since got moulded earplugs and have said how good they are. And I've been playing a lot of music recently that's been very loud trombones. So yeah, it's been something I've been meaning to do for a very long time, but this time there is actually a decent audiologist place near me that my mum recommended, because my mum is deaf in one ear and so has to wear hearing aids, and that's all very exciting. So she recommended that, and I went, and ears are cool things. And yeah, got my ears, got moulded stuff, like putty stuff, whatever you call it, I don't know, expanding foam basically, injected into my ears, and I now am waiting for moulded earplugs. Very exciting indeed. Ear protection is indeed very exciting. The thing that I thought was very cool about it, sorry everybody, I'm being boring and talking about ear protection, but it is important because you can't get your hearing back. Like pulling a muscle, something like that, that's fine, that can recover. Your ears can't. It's, yeah, I am very, again, having a parent who is and has been since birth deaf in one ear, and also being a musician, I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to things being too loud and people being stupid with their hearing, because it's definitely something that I think, especially as when people are students and stuff, it's like, oh, we're going to like go partying every night, go to the club and stuff, and just the sheer volume of some of these places is like, I could never deal with that, even for a short amount of time. And people are going into into clubs and stuff like that for like hours on end. And it's like, you are doing so much damage in one night that you will never recover from. So yeah, but I didn't really. Oh, you got some too nice, Arian. You have enough trouble processing words sometimes as it is without also not being able to hear properly. Yeah. But I didn't realise you could actually get them with... You can get them with different decibel filters. So I didn't realise you could actually like swap the filters out. So if, for example, you've got a gig that's particular, is going to be particularly loud, you can put a higher filter on, which I thought was very exciting. I'm slightly sad that I didn't get to ask what colour they could be. Completely forgot to do that. But yeah, apparently I have very wiggly, small ear canals. Fascinating stuff. But yeah, it was a very interesting process. And I'm now going to have hearing protection, which is very important. Oh gosh, Queek, your dad lost his hearing in Vietnam. Yikes. You have protected your hearing. Yeah, again, it's like people, like with eyesight, like if your eyes go, you've got glasses, you've got contact lenses, you've got this, that and the other, which obviously doesn't necessarily bring your eyesight back to where it was, but you can still function pretty normally. Hearing protection and hearing aids haven't really, like, they haven't been around for as long as things like glasses, because stuff that's visual seems to be prioritized, whereas, actually understanding people isn't, which always baffles me. So yeah, it's always just a little bit behind everything else, which means that, like, there's not a lot you can do to actually get things back hearing wise, because you're still going to have lost a bunch of frequencies, and yeah, that's never going to come back, even with hearing aids, because they can only do so much, and basically all it is putting a microphone in your ear, / speaker. Like, it's just making things louder often. Although I know there've been like a lot of big strides taken in hearing protection and hearing aids recently, but it's still like, yeah, nowhere near what it should be. But it's still it's not the same exactly, Andy. Yeah, like there's no, it never comes back the same, and it angers me that. Sorry, I'm just going on a rant about deafness and hearing impairment at the moment, but it's it angers me, but I also find it quite interesting that when people can't hear you, often the immediate reaction is frustration towards that person, because we don't like having to repeat ourselves numerous times, and like, whereas if someone can't see something, we don't have the same reaction to them. It's like, oh, you are not hard of sight, sorry, you're short-sighted, long-sighted, whatever. That's understandable, that's fair enough, you can't do anything about that. Whereas with the hearing thing, it's like, oh, well, you're not trying hard enough to understand me, or you're not listening hard enough. There is this element of someone not putting in enough effort if they're deaf, which is really screwed up when you think about it. But yeah, hey ho. You're very glad you had a bunch of extra foam earplugs with you on the Longest Pony gig in Kendal. Didn't realise earplugs might be needed at gigs. Yeah, I can imagine the John's, and with the ponies as well, gigs are stupidly loud. It is one thing that I do wish. This isn't targeted at the Johns. This is targeted at, frankly, any live band. I do wish that they would turn things down. They don't need to be as loud as they are. It still baffles me. I mean, sure, if you're in a massive arena, but you do not need that kind of volume. From a classical musician standpoint, it's like an entire orchestra, not even an entire orchestra, a string quartet can be heard at the back of a big hall without amplification. A singer can be heard over an entire orchestra without amplification, and it's a pleasant volume. It's not going to ruin your ears. You can hear everything. Why have we decided that everything must be mic'd up and like pumped out to the nines in order for people to have a good time? Like, you'd like to be able to process the sound. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is something that I really dislike about modern gigs. I just don't understand. I think it's all of I think it's because people are so reliant on amplification and stuff because of like recordings and things. I think it's all, you know, we're in the technological age, we've got to use it, right? People don't sit quietly and listen like they do at classical shows. Well, the thing is, like opera, for example, people used to, when that was like first a thing, people used to chat all the time in that. Like going to the opera, albeit was an upper class thing, and it was where you got seen, but you could people talked over the music, and I imagine they could probably still hear it. But yeah, I don't know. They don't build clubs with that in mind. No, that's true, but there are lots of classical gigs nowadays happen in non-specifically built places, car parks, nightclubs, all sorts, and they don't have amplification most of the time. Instruments are a lot louder than people think. Voices are a lot louder than people think. So, yeah, I don't know. You've heard reasons why it has to be loud, but you still prefer non-perfect audio, but a bit less loud. Yeah, I don't know. I'm on the fence with the reasons why it has to be loud, to be perfectly honest. But you know, at least people can enjoy things. But you just gotta make sure that your hearing is protected. I just don't understand why things are loud enough for people to need hearing protection, and then you can't hear the concert or gig or whatever it is properly. Like, it's like, well, what's the point of that then? Anyway. Also, TLJ have done a lot of shows in theatres that... Yeah, I mean, Bristol Beacon, for goodness sake. That's had a flipping refit, and that's apparently acoustically really good. And, yeah, lots of bands and things do stuff in concert halls. Anyway, rant over. Excuse me. I have 3... I was going to say they were Swedish short stories, but they ain't, because one's Norwegian. So I've got 3 Scandinavian short stories, which I believe covers all bases, for you tonight. You'll keep bringing extra earplugs? Yes. Good for you. So, yeah, we've got 3... This is from my book of... What is it? A World of Great Stories, which is my lovely, very pretty... second-hand book, what I got from my local second-hand bookshop, that is like dark mottled red and it's got like gold inlay on the front. It's all very, very fancy. But yes, I believe we have the text up at the top of chat. I'm going to do probably 2 very short ones to start with, and then I will do a longer one after the break. So if we are all sitting comfortably. Actually, before we're sitting comfortably, Parola. I feel like, and probably other people in chat, I can't remember who else in chat is from that area. How does one pronounce this person's surname? Is it Bojer? Bojer? Is it that? Bojer. Ah! Oh yeah, that makes sense. Neat. And is it Johan? Is it hard J or Johan? I would assume it's Johan, right? I just want to do my pronunciation properly. I'm pretty sure there are some... Johan, okay. Okay, I'm going to mispronounce some of the names in this, I think. I can't go through the whole thing, unfortunately, and work out what all the names are. So apologies in advance. But apparently he was one of the most widely read Norwegian writers. There you go. We don't put a D sound in J. Oh, yeah, fair enough. There's J, yeah. Huh. Anyway, if we're all sitting comfortably, then I shall begin with the first story of tonight, which is The Shark by Johan Bojer. For sheer havoc, there is no gale like a good northwester, when it roars in through the long winter evenings, driving the spindrift before it between the rocky walls of the fjord. It churns the water to a froth of rushing wave crests, while the boats along the beach are flung in somersaults up to the doors of the grey fisher huts, and solid old barn gangways are lifted and sent flying like unwieldy birds over the fields. "Mercy on us!" cry the maids, for it is milking time, and they have to fight their way on hands and knees across the yard to the cowshed, dragging a lantern that will go out and a milk pail that won't be held. And "Lord preserve us," mutter the old wives seated round the stove within doors, and their thoughts are far away in the north with the Lofoten fishermen, out at sea, maybe, this very night. But on a calm spring day, the fjord just steals in, smooth and shining by ness and bay. And at low water there is a whole wonderland of strange little islands, sandbanks and weed-fringed rocks left high and dry, with clear pools between, where bare-legged urchins splash about, and tiny flatfish as big as a halfpenny dart away to every side. The air is filled with a smell of salt sea-water and warm, wet beach waste, and the sea-pie, see-sawing about on a big stone in the water, lifts his red beak cheerily sunwards and pipes, "Cloeep, cloeep, the spring has come." Excuse the helicopter. On just such a day, 2 boys of 14 or thereabouts came hurrying out from one of the fishermen's huts down toward the beach. Boys are never so busy as when they are up to some piece of mischief, and evidently the pair had business of this sort in hand. Pierre Truan, fair-haired and sallow-faced, was pushing a wheelbarrow. His companion, Martin Bruvold, a dark youth with freckles, carried a tub. And both talked mysteriously in whispers, casting anxious glances out over the water. Pierre Truan was, of course, the ringleader. That he always was. The forest fire of last year was laid at his door. And now he made it clear to some of his friends that boys had just as much right to lay out deep-sea lines as men. All through the winter they had been kept at grown-up work, cutting peat and carrying wood. Why should they be left now to fool about with the inshore fishing and bringing home nothing better than flounders and coalfish and silly codlings? The big deep-sea line they were forbidden to touch. That was so, but the Lofoten fishery was at its height, and none of the men would be back till it was over. So the boys had baited up the line on the sly down at the boathouse the day before, and laid it out across the deepest part of the fjord. Now, the thing about a deep-sea line is that it may bring to the surface fish so big and fearsome that the like has never been seen before. Yesterday, however, there had been trouble of a different sort. To their dismay, the boys had found that they had not sinkers enough to weight the shore end of the line, and it looked as if they might have to give up the whole thing. But Pierre, ever ready, had hit on the novel idea of making one end fast to the trunk of a small fir growing at the outermost point of the Ness, and carrying the line from there out over the open fjord. Then a stone at the farther end, and with the magic words, "Fie, fish!" it was paid out overboard, vanishing into the green depths. The deed was done. True, there were a couple of hooks dangling in mid-air at the shore end between the tree and the water, and while they might serve to catch an eider duck or a guillemot if anyone should chance to come rowing past in the dark and get hung up, why, the boys might find they had made a human or a guillemot, or if anyone should chance to come rowing past in the dark and get hung up, why, the boys might find they had made a human catch. No wonder, then, that they whispered eagerly and hurried down to the boat. Apologies for that, there was a typo. "Here comes Peter Rönnigan," cried Martin suddenly. This was the third member of the crew, a lanky youth with whitish eyebrows and a foolish face. He stammered and made a queer noise when he laughed. Hee-hee-hee. Twice he had been turned down in the confirmation classes. After all, what was the use of learning lessons out of a book when nobody ever had patience to wait while he said them? Together they ran the boat down to the water's edge, got it afloat, and scrambled in with much waving of patched trouser legs. "Hi!" cried a voice up on the beach. "Let me come too." "There's Klaus," said Martin. "Should we take him along?" "No," said Peter Runningen. "Oh, yes, let's," said Peer. Excuse for another helicopter. Klaus Brock, the son of the district doctor, was a blue-eyed youngster in knickerbockers and a sailor blouse. He was playing truant, no doubt. Klaus had his lessons at home with a private tutor, and would certainly get a thrashing from his father when he got home. "Hurry up," called Peer, getting out an oar. Klaus clambered in, and the white-straked fore-oar surged across the bay, rocking a little as the boys pulled out of stroke. Martin was rowing at the bow, his eyes fixed on Peer, who sat in the stern in command with his eyes dancing, full of great things to be done. Martin, poor fellow, was half afraid already. He never could understand why Peer, who was to be a parson when he grew up, was always hitting upon things to do that were evidently sinful in the sight of the Lord. Peer was a town boy who had been put out to board with a fisherman in the village. His mother had been no better than she should be, so people said, but she was dead now, and the father at any rate must be a rich gentleman, for he sent the boy a present of 10 whole crowns every Christmas, so that Peer always had money in his pocket. Naturally, then, he was looked up to by the other boys, and took the lead in all things as a chieftain by right. The boat moved on past the grey rocks, the beach and the huts above it growing blue and faint in the distance. Up among the distant hills, a red wooden farmhouse on its white foundation wall stood out clear. Here was the Ness at last, and there stood the fir. Peer climbed up and loosed the end of the line, while the others leaned over the side, watching the cord where it vanished in the depths. What would it bring to light when it came up? "Row!" ordered Peer, and began hauling in. The boat was headed straight out across the fjord, and the long line with its trailing hooks hauled in and coiled up neatly in the bottom of a shallow tub. Peer's heart was beating. There came a tug, the first, and the faint shimmer of a fish deep down in the water. Pooh! Only a big cod. Peer heaved it in with a careless swing over the gunwale. Next came a ling, a deep water fish at any rate, this time. Then a tusk, and another, and another. These would please the women, being good eating, and perhaps make them hold their tongues when the men came home. Now the line jerks heavily. What is coming? A grey shadow comes in sight. "Here, with the gaff!" cries Peer, and Peter throws it across to him. "What is it? What is it?" shriek the other three. "Steady, don't upset the boat. A catfish." A stroke of the gaff over the side, and a clumsy grey body is heaved into the boat, where it rolls about, hissing and biting at the bottom boards and bailer, the splinters crackling under its teeth. "Mind! Mind!" cries Klaus. He was always nervous in a boat. But Peer was hauling in again. They were nearly halfway across the fjord by now, and the line came up from mysterious depths which no fisherman had ever sounded. The strain on Peer began to show in his looks. The others sat watching his face. "Is the line heavy?" asked Klaus. "Keep still, can't you?" put in Martin, glancing along the slanting line to where it vanished far below. Peer was still hauling. A sense of something uncanny seemed to be thrilling up into his hands from the deep sea. The feel of the line was strange. There was no great weight, not even the clean tug-tug of an ordinary fish. It was as if a giant hand were pulling gently, very gently, to draw him overboard and down into the depths. Then suddenly a violent jerk almost dragged him over the side. "Look out! What is it?" cried the three together. "Sit down in the boat," shouted Peer, and with the true fisherman's sense of discipline they obeyed. Peter was gripping the line firmly with one hand, the other clutching one of the thwarts. "Have we another gaff?" he jerked out breathlessly. "Here's one." Peter Runningen pulled out a second iron-hooked cudgel. "You take it, Martin, and stand by." But what is it?" "Don't know what it is, but it's something big." "Cut the line and row for your lives," wailed the doctor's son. Strange he should be such a coward at sea, a fellow who'd tackle a man twice his size on dry land. Once more Pierre was jerked almost overboard. He thought of the forest fire the year before. It would never do to have another such mishap on his shoulders. Suppose the great monster did come up and capsize them. They were ever so far from land. What a to-do there would be if they were all drowned, and it came out that it was his fault. Involuntarily he felt for his knife to cut the line, then thrust it back again and went on hauling. Here it comes, a great shadow heaving up through the water. The huge beast flings itself round, sending a flurry of bubbles to the surface. And there, a gleam of white, a row of great white teeth on the underside. Aha, now he knows what it is. The Greenland shark is the fiercest monster of the northern seas, quite able to make short work of a few boys or so. "Steady now, Martin. Ready with the gaff." The brute was wallowing on the surface now, the water boiling around him. His tail lashed the sea to foam, a big pointed head showed up, squirming under the hook. "Now!" cried Pierre, and two gaffs struck at the same moment. The boat heeled over, letting in a rush of water, and Klaus, dropping his oars, sprang into the bow with a cry of "Jesus, save us!" Next second, a heavy body, big as a grown man, was heaved in over the gunwale, and two boys were all but shot out the other way. And now the fun began. The boys loosed their hold of the gaffs and sprang apart to give the creature room. There it lay, raging, the great black beast of prey, with its sharp, threatening snout and wicked red eyes ablaze. The strong tail lashed out, hurling oars and bailers overboard. The long teeth snapped at the bottom boards and thwarts. Now and again it would leap high up in the air, only to fall back again, writhing furiously, hissing and spitting and frothing at the mouth, its red eyes glaring from one to another of the terrified captors, as if saying, "Come on, just a little nearer." Meanwhile, Martin Bruvold was in terror that the shark would smash the boat to pieces. He drew his knife and took a step forward. A flash in the air, and the steel went in deep between the back fins, sending up a spurt of blood. "Look out!" cried the others, but Martin had already sprung back, out of reach of the black tail. And now the dance of death began anew. The knife was fixed to the grip in the creature's back. One gaff had buried its hook between the eyes, and another hung on the flank. The wooden shafts were flung this way and that at every bound, and the boat's frame shook and groaned under the blows. "She'll smash the boat and we'll go to the bottom," cried Pierre. And now his knife flashed out and sent a stream of blood spouting from between the shoulders, but the blow cost him his foothold, and in a moment the two bodies were rolling over and over together in the bottom of the boat. "Oh, Lord Jesus!" shrieked Klaus, clinging to the stem post. "She'll kill him! She'll kill him!" Peter was half up now, on his knees, but as he reached out a hand to grasp the side, the brute's jaws seized on his arm. The boy's face was contorted with pain. Another moment and the sharp teeth would have bitten through, when, swift as thought, Peter Runningen dropped his oars and sent his knife straight in between the beast's eyes. The blade pierced through to the brain, and the grip of the teeth relaxed. "Cursed devil!" stammered Peter as he scrambled back to his oars. Another moment, and Pierre had dragged himself clear and was kneeling by the forward thwart, holding the ragged sleeve of his wounded arm while the blood trickled through his fingers. When at last they were pulling homeward, the little boat overloaded with the weight of the great carcass, all at once they stopped rowing. "Where is Klaus?" asked Pierre, for the doctor's son was gone from where he had sat, clinging to the stem. Why, there he is, in the bottom. There lay the big lout of 15, who already boasted of his love affairs, learned German, and was to be a gentleman like his father. There he lay on the bottom boards in the bow, in a dead faint. The others were frightened at first, but Peer, who was sitting washing his wounded arm, took a dipper full of water and flung it in the unconscious one's face. The next instant Klaus had started up sitting, caught wildly at the gunwale, and shrieked out, "Cut the line and row for your lives!" A roar of laughter went up from the rest. They dropped their oars and sat doubled up and gasping. But on the beach, before going home, they agreed to say nothing about Klaus's fainting fit. And for weeks afterwards the 4 scamps' exploit was the talk of the village, so that they felt there was not much fear of their getting the thrashing they deserved when the men came home. The end. I mean, don't go fishing for sharks, guys. I think is the moral of that one. That shark was just minding her own business, and these arrogant teenagers decided to, have a go at fishing for one. Well, not actually fishing for one, but fishing and accidentally getting a shark. So, yeah, great idea. Well done, everybody. 10 out of 10. Could have gone a lot worse for them. It really could have done. Yeah. Poor shark. Exactly. I feel sorry for the shark. Shark did not ask for this. Shark was not, attacking them. But, ambitious little boys. Anyway, I have another one for you. This is an even shorter one. Shark just wanted to shark around in the fjord. Yeah, exactly. Shark was just having a chill shark time. Yeah. So I have another little one. A different vibe, this one, but still about kids or a kid. So text is pinned at the top of chat. If we are all sitting comfortably, I shall continue with my second story for tonight, which is The Burning City by Hjalmar Söderberg. Through the 2 windows, with their bright lattice-figured curtains, the level sunlight of the winter morning falls in 2 slanting oblong quadrilaterals on the soft green carpet, and in the warm sunny spaces a little boy skips and dances. He knows but little of the world as yet. He knows he is little and is going to be big, but he does not know either that he has been born or that he will die. He knows he is 4 and will soon be 5, but he does not know what is meant by a year. He still measures time only into yesterday, today, and tomorrow. "Papa!" he suddenly exclaims to his father, who has just finished breakfast and lighted his first cigar of the day, he being a person to measure time with cigars. "Papa, I dreamed so many things last night. I dreamed about the whole room. I dreamed about the chairs, and the green carpet, and the mirror, and the clock, and the stove, and the shutters, and the cupboards." With that he skips forward to the stove, where the fire flames and crackles, and turns a somersault. He considers the stove and the place in front of it as the most important and dignified things in the room. His father nods and laughs at him over the corner of his paper, and the boy laughs back, laughs away uncontrollably. He is at the age when laughter is still only an utterance of joy, not of appreciation for the ridiculous. When he stood at the window some days ago and laughed at the moon, it was not because he found the moon funny, but because it gave him joy with its round, bright face. When he has had his laugh out, he clambers up on a chair and points to one of the pictures on the wall. "And I dreamed most of all about that picture," he says. The picture is a photograph of an old Dutch painting, a burning city. Well, and what was it you dreamed? His father asks. I don't know. Come, think. Oh yes, I dreamed it was burning and that I patted a doggy. But generally you are afraid of doggies. Yes, but on pictures I can pat them nicely. Then he laughs and skips and dances. At last he comes up to his father and says, Papa, dear, take down the picture. I want Papa to show me the picture again the way he did yesterday. The picture is a new arrival in the room. It came the day before. With the other pictures around the walls, the little boy has acquainted himself long ago. Uncle Strindberg and Uncle Chopin, i.e. Schopenhauer, and Uncle Napoleon and ugly old Goethe and grandmother when she was young. But the burning city is new, and is furthermore in itself a much more amusing picture than the others. The father humours the little boy, takes the picture down from the wall, and they enjoy it together. Over a broad estuary that winds towards the sea and is filled with sloops and rowboats runs an arched bridge with a fortified tower. On the left shore lies the burning city, rows of narrow houses with pointed gables, high roofs, churches and towers, a throng of people running hither and thither, a sea of fire and flames, clouds of smoke, ladders raised against walls, horses running away with shaking loads, docks crowded with barrels and sacks and all manner of rubbish. On the river, a mass of people in a rowboat that is almost ready to capsize, while across the bridge people are running for dear life. And away off in the foreground stand two dogs sniffing at each other. But far in the background, where the estuary widens towards the sea, a much too small moon sits on the horizon in a mist of pale clouds, peeping wanly and sadly at all this misery. Papa, inquires the small boy, why is the city burning? Somebody was careless with fire, says the father. Who was it that was careless? Ah, one can't be sure of that so long afterward. How long afterward? It is many 100 years since that city was burned, says the father. This is a bit puzzling to the little boy, as the father clearly realizes, but he had to answer something. The boy sits quiet a moment and ponders. New thoughts and impressions about things stir in his brain and mingle with the old. He points with his little finger on the glass over the burning city and says, Yes, but it was burning yesterday, and now today it's burning too. The father ventures on an explanation of the difference between pictures and reality. That is not a real city, he says. That is only a picture. The real city was burned up long, long ago. It is gone. The people that run about there waving their arms are dead and don't exist anymore. The houses have been burned up, the towers have fallen, the bridge is gone too. Have the towers burned down or tumbled down? Asks the boy. They have both burned and tumbled down. Are the steamboats dead too? The boats too have been gone long ago, replied the father. But those are not steamboats, they are sailing vessels. There were no steamboats in those days. The little boy sticks out his lower lip with a dissatisfied expression. But I see that they're steamboats, he says. Papa, what's that steamboat's name? He has a mind of his own, has the boy. The father is tired of the labour of instruction and holds his peace. The boy points with his finger to the old Dutch merchantman and prattles to himself. That steamer's name is Brage, and that one's is Hillesea, and that is the Princess Ingeborg. Papa, he cries all of a sudden, is the moon gone too? No, the moon still exists. It is the one thing of all there that still exists. It is the same moon you laughed at the other day in the nursery window. Again the little boy sits still and ponders. Then comes yet another question. Papa, is it very long ago this city was burned? Is it as long ago as when we went away on the Princess Ingeborg? It is much, much longer ago, answers the father. When that city burned, neither you nor I nor Mamma nor Grandma was here. The boy's face becomes very serious all at once. He looks positively troubled. He sits quiet a long while, pondering. But it seems as if things would not work out for him. Tell me, Papa, he finally asks, where was I when that city was burned? Was it when I was at Grenna with Mamma? No, old fellow, replies the father. When that city burned, you didn't yet exist. The boy sticks out his underlip again with an attitude as much as to say, no, I can't agree to such a thing as that. He then repeats with emphasis, yes, but where was I then? His father answers, you didn't exist at all. The boy looks at his father with round eyes. Suddenly all the little face brightens, and the boy tears himself away from his father and begins to skip and dance again in the sunny spots on the green carpet, crying at the top of his lungs, oh, yes, I did just the same. I was somewhere. He thought his father was only joking with him. Such an idea was clearly too ridiculous. The maids used sometimes to talk nonsense to him in jest, and he thought his father had done the same. So he skips and dances in the sunlight. The end. That's a very sweet one. I quite like that one. Trying to tell a 5-year-old that they didn't exist yet is like, yeah, that's existential questions are a bit difficult for kids that age, I feel. So yes, that was a very sweet one. I very much enjoyed that. Just the constant questions as well. I was like, yeah, I feel like this person had kids. Time is way too big for small kids. Oh, absolutely. That's why you leave the existential questions to Grandpa. Nice. Yeah, absolutely. But yes, those are the first 2 stories for tonight. It took a bit less time than I expected, actually. But there's one we will do after that is a little bit longer, not massively longer, so again it might be a slightly shorter stream, for which I apologise, but yeah. I thought 3 stories would probably fill it, but apparently might not. You must be going, Shiny Happy Goth. Well, thank you very much for stopping in, and have a good rest of your day. But yes, we shall go to a break. So everybody go do break-related things. Oh, excuse me. Get your yawns out and all that. And we shall see you back in about 5 minutes. Bye for now. Greetings, everybody. We return. Welcome back from the break. How are we all doing? Hope we did break things. As in things to do in the break. Yeah. I have put the text for the next story up at the top of chat, and Prola has just said that she used to be on your 20 krona bills, along with the goose from her most well-known children's book. Well, what's her most well? There's a little bio here, a biography at the top of this story about this author, Selma Lagerlöf, I assume. Was born in Värmland. I'm saying these in very German ways, I realise. I'm sorry. If I'm mispronouncing these, I apologise. The Swedish province with which most of... Oh, Nils Holgersson is the story? What? Have I put a different story up? Wait, hold on. No. I've put that one up. Oh, you mean the one with the goose? Oh, right, sorry. You completely lost me there for a second. I'm being dense. Nils Holgersson is the story. Ah, okay. That is not actually... Oh, well, The Wonderful Adventures of Nils has been written here. All of her tales and novels are based on the folk legends of Sweden. Among her most famous are The Saga of Gosta Berling, The Wonderful Adventures of Nils, Marbacka, and Memories of My Childhood. Oh. So yes, but this is none of those. Yeah, but that's cool that she's on the 20 krona bills. So she is a very well known author in Sweden then, I guess. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I quite like her writing. Well, I mean, obviously it's been translated, but the sort of the way it seems to have been painted in this is really quite nice. Painted, you know, whatever, descriptions, etc. Words. Oh, my PC just started making noise. Yeah, right there, PC. I think it's fine. I hope it's fine. But yes, we will. Yeah, this one will take a little bit more time, I think. Shouldn't be too long. So yeah, might be a bit of an early end to the stream. Might not be. We shall see. So, if we are all sitting comfortably once again, if we all have some kind of drink, whether it be a hot drink or a cool drink or just whatever you fancy, really, then we will continue with our third and final story for tonight, which is The Outlaws by Selma Lagerlöf. A peasant who had murdered a monk took to the woods and was made an outlaw. He found there before him in the wilderness another outlaw, a fisherman from the outermost islands, who had been accused of stealing a herring net. They joined together, lived in a cave, set snares, sharpened darts, baked bread on a granite rock, and guarded one another's lives. The peasant never left the woods, but the fisherman, who had not committed such an abominable crime, sometimes loaded game on his shoulders and stole down among men. There he got in exchange for blackcocks, for long-eared hares and fine-limbed red deer, milk and butter, arrowheads and clothes. These helped the outlaws to sustain life. The cave where they lived was dug in the side of a hill. Broad stones and thorny sloe bushes hid the entrance. Above it stood a thick-growing pine tree. At its roots was the vent hole of the cave. The rising smoke filtered through the tree's thick branches and vanished into space. The men used to go to and from their dwelling place, wading in the mountain stream which ran down the hill. No one looked for their tracks under the merry, bubbling water. At first they were hunted like wild beasts. The peasants gathered as if for a chase of bear or wolf. The wood was surrounded by men with bows and arrows. Men with spears went through it and left no dark crevice, no bushy thicket unexplored. While the noisy battue hunted through the wood, the outlaws lay in their dark hole, listening breathlessly, panting with terror. The fisherman held out a whole day, but he who had murdered was driven by unbearable fear out into the open, where he could see his enemy. He was seen and hunted, but it seemed to him 7 times better than to lie still in helpless inactivity. He fled from his pursuers, slid down precipices, sprang over streams, climbed up perpendicular mountain walls. All latent strength and dexterity in him was called forth by the excitement of danger. His body became elastic like a steel spring. His foot made no false step. His hand never lost its hold. Eye and ear were twice as sharp as usual. He understood what the leaves whispered and the rocks warned. When he had climbed up a precipice, he turned towards his pursuers, sending them jibes in biting rhyme. When the whistling darts whizzed by him, he caught them, swift as lightning, and hurled them down on his enemies. As he forced his way through whipping branches, something within him sang a song of triumph. The bald mountain ridge ran through the wood, and alone on its summit stood a lofty fir. The red-brown trunk was bare, but in the branching top rocked an eagle's nest. The fugitive was now so audaciously bold that he climbed up there, while his pursuers looked for him on the wooded slopes. There he sat, twisting the young eaglets' necks, while the hunt passed by far below him. The male and female eagle, longing for revenge, swooped down on the ravisher. They fluttered before his face, they struck with their beaks at his eyes, they beat him with their wings and tore with their claws bleeding wheals in his weather-beaten skin. Laughing, he fought with them. Standing upright in the shaking nest, he cut at them with his sharp knife and forgot in the pleasure of the play his danger and his pursuers. When he found time to look for them, they had gone by to some other part of the forest. No one had thought to look for their prey on the bald mountain ridge. No one had raised his eyes to the clouds to see him practicing boyish tricks and sleepwalking feats while his life was in the greatest danger. The man trembled when he found that he was saved. With shaking hands he caught at a support. Giddy he measured the height to which he had climbed. And moaning with the fear of falling, afraid of the birds, afraid of being seen, afraid of everything, he slid down the trunk. He laid himself down on the ground so as not to be seen, and dragged himself forward over the rocks until the underbrush covered him. There he hid himself under the young pine tree's tangled branches. Weak and powerless, he sank down on the moss. A single man could have captured him. Tord was the fisherman's name. He was not more than 16 years old, but strong and bold. He had already lived a year in the woods. The peasant's name was Berg, with the surname Rees. He was the tallest and the strongest man in the whole district, and moreover handsome and well built. He was broad in the shoulders and slender in the waist. His hands were as well shaped as if he had never done any hard work. His hair was brown and his skin fair. After he had been some time in the woods, he acquired in all ways a more formidable appearance. His eyes became piercing, his eyebrows grew bushy, and the muscles which knitted them lay finger-thick above his nose. It showed now more plainly than before how the upper part of his athlete's brow projected over the lower. His lips closed more firmly than of old. His whole face was thinner. The hollows at the temples grew very deep, and his powerful jaw was much more prominent. His body was less well filled out, but his muscles were hard as steel. His hair grew suddenly grey. Young Tord could never weary of looking at this man. He had never before seen anything so beautiful and powerful. In his imagination he stood high as the forest, strong as the sea. He served him as a master and worshipped him as a god. It was a matter of course that Tord should carry the hunting spears, drag home the game, fetch the water and build the fire. Berg Rhys accepted all his services, but almost never gave him a friendly word. He despised him because he was a thief. The outlaws did not lead a robber's or brigand's life. They supported themselves by hunting and fishing. If Berg had not murdered a holy man, the peasants would have soon ceased to pursue him and have left him in peace on the mountains. But they feared great disaster to the district, because he who had raised his hand against the servant of God was still unpunished. When Tord came down to the valley with game, they offered him riches and pardon for his own crime if he would show them the way to Berg Rhys's hole, so that they might take him while he slept. But the boy always refused, and if anyone tried to sneak after him up to the wood, he led him so cleverly astray that he gave up the pursuit. Once Berg asked him if the peasants had not tried to tempt him to betray him, and when he heard what they had offered him as a reward, he said scornfully that Tord had been foolish not to accept such a proposal. Then Tord looked at him with a glance, the like of which Berg Rhys had never before seen. Never had any beautiful woman in his youth, never had his wife or child looked so at him. "You are my lord, my elected master," said the glance. "Know that you may strike me and abuse me as you will. I am faithful notwithstanding." After that, Berg Rhys paid more attention to the boy and noticed that he was bold to act but timid to speak. He had no fear of death. When the ponds were first frozen, or when the bogs were most dangerous in the spring, when the quagmires were hidden under richly flowering grasses and cloudberry, he took his way over them by choice. He seemed to feel the need of exposing himself to danger as a compensation for the storms and terrors of the ocean which he had no longer to meet. At night he was afraid in the woods, and even in the middle of the day the darkest thickets or the wide-stretching roots of a fallen pine could frighten him. But when Berg Rhys asked him about it, he was too shy to even answer. Tord did not sleep near the fire, far in the cave, on the bed which was made soft with moss and warm with skins. But every night, when Berg had fallen asleep, he crept out to the entrance and lay there on a rock. Berg discovered this, and although he well understood the reason, he asked what it meant. Tord would not explain. To escape any more questions, he did not lie at the door for 2 nights, but then he returned to his post. One night, when the drifting snow whirled about the forest tops and drove into the thickest underbrush, the driving snowflakes found their way into the outlaws' cave. Tord, who lay just inside the entrance, was, when he waked in the morning, covered by a melting snowdrift. A few days later he fell ill. His lungs wheezed, and when they were expanded to take in air, he felt excruciating pain. He kept up as long as his strength held out, but when one evening he leaned down to blow the fire, he fell over and remained lying. Berg Rhys came to him and told him to go to his bed. Tord moaned with pain and could not raise himself. Berg then thrust his arms under him and carried him there. But he felt as if he had got hold of a slimy snake. He had a taste in the mouth as if he had eaten the unholy horseflesh. It was so odious to him to touch the miserable thief. He laid his own big bearskin over him and gave him water. More he could not do. Nor was it anything dangerous. Tord was soon well again. But through Berg's being obliged to do his tasks and to be his servant, they had come nearer to one another. Tord dared to talk to him when he sat in the cave in the evening and cut arrow shafts. "You are of a good race, Berg," said Tord. "Your kinsmen are the richest in the valley. Your ancestors have served with kings and fought in their castles." "They have oftener fought with bands of rebels and done the kings great injury," replied Berg Rhys. "Your ancestors gave great feasts at Christmas, and so did you when you were at home. Hundreds of men and women could find a place to sit in your big house, which was already built before St. Olaf first gave the baptism here in Viken. You owned old silver vessels and great drinking horns which passed from man to man, filled with mead." Again Berg Rhys had to look at the boy. He sat up with his legs hanging out of the bed and his head resting on his hands, with which he at the same time held back the wild masses of hair which would fall over his eyes. His face had become pale and delicate from the ravages of sickness. In his eyes fever still burned. He smiled at the pictures he conjured up, at the adorned house, at the silver vessels, at the guests in gala array, and at Berg Rhys, sitting in the seat of honour in the hall of his ancestors. The peasant thought that no one had ever looked at him with such shining, admiring eyes, or thought him so magnificent, arrayed in his festival clothes, as that boy thought him in the torn skin dress. He was both touched and provoked. That miserable thief had no right to admire him. "Were there no feasts in your house?" he asked. Tord laughed. "Out there on the rocks with father and mother? Father is a wrecker and mother is a witch. No one will come to us." "Is your mother a witch?" "She is," answered Tord, quite untroubled. "In stormy weather she rides out on a seal to meet the ships over which the waves are washing, and those who are carried overboard are hers." "What does she do with them?" asked Berg. "Oh, a witch always needs corpses. She makes ointments out of them, or perhaps she eats them. On moonlit nights she sits in the surf where it is whitest, and the spray dashes over her. They say that she sits and searches for shipwrecked children's fingers and eyes." "That is awful," said Berg. The boy answered with infinite assurance, "That would be awful in others, but not in witches. They have to do so." Berg Rhys found that he had here come upon a new way of regarding the world and things. "Do thieves have to steal, as witches have to use witchcraft?" he asked sharply. "Yes, of course," answered the boy. "Everyone has to do what he is destined to do." But then he added with a cautious smile, "There are thieves also who have never stolen." "Say out what you mean," said Berg. The boy continued with his mysterious smile, proud at being an unsolvable riddle. "It is like speaking of birds who do not fly, to talk of thieves who do not steal." Berg Rhys pretended to be stupid in order to find out what he wanted. "No one can be called a thief without having stolen," he said. "No, but," said the boy, and pressed his lips together as if to keep in the words. "But if someone had a father who stole," he hinted after a while. "One inherits money and lands," replied Berg Rhys, "but no one bears the name of a thief if he has not himself earned it." Tord laughed quietly. "But if somebody has a mother who begs and prays him to take his father's crime on him, but if such a one cheats the hangman and escapes to the woods, but if someone is made an outlaw for a fishnet which he has never seen." Berg Rhys struck the stone table with his clenched fist. He was angry. This fair young man had thrown away his whole life. He could never win love, nor riches, nor esteem after that. The wretched striving for food and clothes was all which was left to him. And the fool had let him, Berg Rhys, go on despising one who was innocent. He rebuked him with stern words, but Tord was not even as afraid as a sick child is of its mother when she chides it because it has caught cold by wading in the spring brooks. On one of the broad wooded mountains lay a dark tarn. It was square, with as straight shores and as sharp corners as if it had been cut by the hand of man. On 3 sides it was surrounded by steep cliffs, on which pines clung with roots as thick as a man's arm. Down by the pool, where the earth had been gradually washed away, their roots stood up out of the water, bare and crooked and wonderfully twisted about one another. It was like an infinite number of serpents which had wanted all at the same time to crawl up out of the pool, but had got entangled in one another and held fast. Or it was like a mass of blackened skeletons of drowned giants which the pool wanted to throw up on the land. Arms and legs writhed about one another, the long fingers dug deep into the very cliff to get a hold. The mighty ribs formed arches which held up primeval trees. It had happened, however, that the iron arms, the steel-like fingers with which the pines held themselves fast, had given way, and a pine had been borne by a mighty north wind from the top of the cliff down into the pool. It had burrowed deep down into the muddy bottom with its top, and now stood there. The smaller fish had a good place of refuge among its branches, but the roots stuck up above the water like a many-armed monster, and contributed to make the pool awful and terrifying. On the tarn's 4th side the cliff sank down. There a little foaming stream carried away its waters. Before this stream could find the only possible way, it had tried to get out between stones and tufts, and had by so doing made a little world of islands, some no bigger than a little hillock, others covered with trees. Here, where the encircling cliffs did not shut out all the sun, leafy trees flourished. Here stood thirsty grey-green alders and smooth-leaved willows. The birch tree grew there as it does everywhere where it is trying to crowd out the pine woods, and the wild cherry and the mountain ash, those two which edged the forest pastures, filling them with fragrance and adorning them with beauty. Here at the outlet there was a forest of reeds as high as a man, which made the sunlight fall green on the water just as it falls on the moss in the real forest. Among the reeds there were open places, small round pools, and water lilies were floating there. The tall stalks looked down with mild seriousness on these sensitive beauties, who discontentedly shut their white petals and yellow stamens in a hard, leather-like sheath as soon as the sun ceased to show itself. One sunshiny day, the outlaws came to this tarn to fish. They waded out to a couple of big stones in the midst of the reed forest, and sat there and threw out bait for the big green-striped pickerel that lay and slept near the surface of the water. These men, who were always wandering in the woods and the mountains, had, without their knowing it themselves, come under nature's rule as much as the plants and the animals. When the sun shone, they were open-hearted and brave, but in the evening, as soon as the sun had disappeared, they became silent, and the night, which seemed to them much greater and more powerful than the day, made them anxious and helpless. Now the green light, which slanted in between the rushes and coloured the water with brown and dark green streaked with gold, affected their mood until they were ready for any miracle. Every outlook was shut off. Sometimes the reeds rocked in an imperceptible wind, their stalks rustled, and the long ribbon-like leaves fluttered against their faces. They sat in grey skins on the grey stones. The shadows in the skins repeated the shadows of the weather-beaten, mossy stone. Each saw his companion in his silence and immovability change into a stone image. But in among the rushes swam mighty fishes with rainbow-coloured backs. When the men threw out their hooks and saw the circles spreading among the reeds, it seemed as if the motion grew stronger and stronger, until they perceived that it was not caused only by their cast. a sea nymph, half human, half a shining fish, lay and slept on the surface of the water. She lay on her back with her whole body under water. The waves so nearly covered her that they had not noticed her before. It was her breathing that caused the motion of the waves. But there was nothing strange in her lying there, and when the next instant she was gone, they were not sure that she had not been only an illusion. The green light entered through the eyes into the brain like a gentle intoxication. The men sat and stared with dulled thoughts, seeing visions among the reeds, of which they did not dare to tell one another. Their catch was poor. The day was devoted to dreams and apparitions. The stroke of oars was heard among the rushes, and they started up as from sleep. The next moment a flat-bottomed boat appeared, heavy, hollowed out with no skill, and with oars as small as sticks. A young girl who had been picking water lilies rowed it. She had dark brown hair gathered in great braids, and big dark eyes. Otherwise she was strangely pale. But her paleness toned to pink and not to grey. Her cheeks had no higher colour than the rest of her face, the lips had hardly enough. She wore a white linen shirt and a leather belt with a gold buckle. Her skirt was blue with a red hem. She rode by the outlaws without seeing them. They kept breathlessly still, but not for fear of being seen, but only to be able to really see her. As soon as she had gone, they were as if changed from stone images to living beings. Smiling, they looked at one another. "She was white like the water lilies," said one. "Her eyes were as dark as the water there under the pine roots." They were so excited that they wanted to laugh, really laugh, as no one had ever laughed by that pool, till the cliffs thundered with echoes and the roots of the pines loosened with fright. "Did you think she was pretty?" asked Berg Rhys. "Oh, I do not know. I saw her for such a short time. Perhaps she was." "I do not believe you dared to look at her. You thought that it was a mermaid." And then they were again shaken by the same extravagant merriment. Tord had once as a child seen a drowned man. He had found the body on the shore on a summer day and had not been at all afraid, but at night he had dreamed terrible dreams. He saw a sea where every wave rolled a dead man to his feet. He saw too that all the islands were covered with drowned men, who were dead and belonged to the sea, but who could still speak and move and threaten him with withered white hands. It was so with him now. The girl whom he had seen among the rushes came back in his dreams. He met her out in the open pool, where the sunlight fell even greener than among the rushes, and he had time to see that she was beautiful. He dreamed that he had crept up to the big pine root in the middle of the dark tarn, but the pines swayed and rocked so that sometimes he was quite under water. Then she came forward on the little islands. She stood under the red mountain ashes and laughed at him. In the last dream vision he had come so far that she kissed him. It was already morning, and he heard that Berg Rhys had got up, but he obstinately shut his eyes to be able to go on with his dream. When he woke, he was as though dizzy and stunned by what had happened to him in the night. He thought much more now of the girl than he had done the day before. Toward night, he happened to ask Berg Rhys if he knew her name. Berg looked at him inquiringly. "Perhaps it is best for you to hear it," he said. "She is Un. We are cousins." Tord then knew that it was for that pale girl's sake Berg Rhys wandered an outlaw in forest and mountain. Tord tried to remember what he knew of her. Un was the daughter of a rich peasant. Her mother was dead, so that she managed her father's house. This she liked, for she was fond of her own way, and she had no wish to be married. Unn and Berg Rhys were the children of brothers, and it had long been said that Berg preferred to sit with Unn and her maids and jest with them than to work on his own lands. When the great Christmas feast was celebrated at his house, his wife had invited a monk from Draxmark, for she wanted him to remonstrate with Berg, because he was forgetting her for another woman. This monk was hateful to Berg and to many on account of his appearance. He was very fat and quite white. The ring of hair about his bald head, the eyebrows above his watery eyes, his face, his hands, and his whole look, everything was white. Many found it hard to endure his looks. At the banquet table, in the hearing of all the guests, this monk now said, for he was fearless and thought that his words would have more effect if they were heard by many, "People are in the habit of saying that the cuckoo is the worst of birds because he does not rear his young in his own nest. But here sits a man who does not provide for his home and his children, but seeks his pleasure with a strange woman. Him will I call the worst of men." Unn then rose up. "That, Berg, is said to you and me," she said. "Never have I been so insulted, and my father is not here either." She had wished to go, but Berg sprang after her. Do not move, she said. "I will never see you again." He caught up with her in the hall and asked her what he should do to make her stay. She had answered with flashing eyes that he must know that best himself. Then Berg went in and killed the monk. Berg and Tord were busy with the same thoughts, for after a while Berg said, "You should have seen her, Unn, when the white monk fell. The mistress of the house gathered the small children about her and cursed her. She turned their faces toward her, that they might forever remember her who had made their father a murderer. But Unn stood calm and so beautiful that the men trembled. She thanked me for the deed and told me to fly to the woods. She bade me not to be a robber and not to use the knife until I could do it for an equally just cause." "Your deed had been to her honour," said Tord. Berg Rhys noticed again what had astonished him before in the boy. He was like a heathen, worse than a heathen. He never condemned what was wrong. He felt no responsibility. That which must be, was. He knew of God and Christ and the saints, but only by name, as one knows the gods of foreign lands. The ghosts of the rocks were his gods. His mother, wise in witchcraft, had taught him to believe in the spirits of the dead. Then Berg Rhys undertook a task which was as foolish as to twist a rope about his own neck. He set before those ignorant eyes the great God, the Lord of justice, the avenger of misdeeds, who casts the wicked into places of everlasting torment. And he taught him to love Christ and his mother and the holy men and women who with lifted hands kneeled before God's throne to avert the wrath of the great avenger from the hosts of sinners. He taught him all that men do to appease God's wrath. He showed him the crowds of pilgrims making pilgrimages to holy places, the flight of self-torturing penitents and monks from a worldly life. As he spoke, the boy became more eager and more pale. His eyes grew large as if for terrible visions. Berg Rhys wished to stop, but thoughts streamed to him and he went on speaking. The night sank down over them, the black forest night, when the owls hoot. God came so near to them that they saw his throne darken the stars, and the chastising angels sank down to the tops of the trees. And under them the fires of hell flamed up to the earth's crust, eagerly licking that shaking place of refuge for the sorrowing races of men. The autumn had come with a heavy storm. Tord went alone in the woods to see after the snares and traps. Berg Rhys sat at home to mend his clothes. Tord's way led in a broad path up a wooded height. Every gust carried the dry leaves in a rustling whirl up the path, time after time. Tord thought that someone went behind him. He often looked round. Sometimes he stopped to listen, but he understood that it was the leaves and the wind, and went on. As soon as he started on again, he heard someone come dancing on silken foot up the slope. Small feet came tripping. Elves and fairies played behind him. When he turned round, there was no one. Always no one. He shook his fists at the rustling leaves and went on. They did not grow silent for that, but they took another tone. They began to hiss and to pant behind him. A big viper came gliding. Its tongue dripping venom hung far out of its mouth, and its bright body shone against the withered leaves. Beside the snake pattered a wolf, a big gaunt monster who was ready to seize fast in his throat when the snake had twisted about his feet and bitten him in the heel. Sometimes they were both silent, as if to approach him unperceived, but they soon betrayed themselves by hissing and panting, and sometimes the wolf's claws rung against a stone. Involuntarily Tod walked quicker and quicker, but the creatures hastened after him. When he felt that they were only 2 steps distant and were preparing to strike, he turned. There was nothing there, and he had known it the whole time. He sat down on a stone to rest. Then the dry leaves played about his feet as if to amuse him. All the leaves of the forest were there. Small, light yellow birch leaves, red speckled mountain ash, the elm's dry, dark brown leaves, the aspen's tough, light red, and the willow's yellow-green. Transformed and withered, scarred and torn were they, and much unlike the downy, light green, delicately shaped leaves which a few months ago had rolled out of their buds. "Sinners," said the boy. "Sinners, nothing is pure in God's eyes. The flame of his wrath has already reached you." When he resumed his wandering, he saw the forest under him bend before the storm like a heaving sea, but in the path it was calm. But he heard what he did not feel. The woods were full of voices. He heard whisperings, wailing songs, coarse threats, thundering oaths. There was laughter and laments. There was the noise of many people. That which hounded and pursued, which rustled and hissed, which seemed to be something and still was nothing, gave him wild thoughts. He felt again the anguish of death, as when he lay on the floor in his den and the peasants hunted him through the wood. He heard again the crashing of branches, the people's heavy tread, the ring of weapons, the resounding cries, the wild, bloodthirsty noise which followed the crowd. But it was not only that which he heard in the storm. There was something else, something still more terrible, voices which he could not interpret, a confusion of voices which seemed to him to speak in foreign tongues. He had heard mightier storms than this whistle through the rigging, but never before had he heard the wind play on such a many-voiced harp. Each tree had its own voice. The pine did not murmur like the aspen, nor the poplar like the mountain ash. Every hole had its note, every cliff's sounding echo its own ring. And the noise of the brooks and the cry of foxes mingled with the marvellous forest storm. But all that he could interpret. There were other strange sounds. It was those which made him begin to scream and scoff and groan in emulation with the storm. He had always been afraid when he was alone in the darkness of the forest. He liked the open sea and the bare rocks. Spirits and phantoms crept about among the trees. Suddenly he heard who it was who spoke in the storm. It was God, the great avenger, the God of justice. He was hunting him for the sake of his comrade. He demanded that he should deliver up the murderer to his vengeance. Then Tord began to speak in the midst of the storm. He told God what he had wished to do, but had not been able. He had wished to speak to Berg Rhys and to beg him to make his peace with God, but he had been too shy. Bashfulness had made him dumb. Excuse the noises in the background. When I heard that the earth was ruled by a just God, he cried, I understood that he was a lost man. I have lain and wept for my friend many long nights. I knew that God would find him out, wherever he might hide. But I could not speak, nor teach him to understand. I was speechless because I loved him so much. Ask not that I shall speak to him. Ask not that the sea shall rise up against the mountain. He was silent, and in the storm the deep voice, which had been the voice of God for him, ceased. It was suddenly calm, with a sharp sun and a splashing as of oars, and a gentle rustle as if of stiff rushes. Excuse the noise again. These sounds brought Un's image before him. The outlaw cannot have anything, not riches, nor women, nor the esteem of men. If he should betray Berg, he would be taken under the protection of the law. But Un must love Berg after what he had done for her. There was no way out of it all. When the storm increased, he heard again steps behind him, and sometimes a breathless panting. Now he did not dare to look back, for he knew that the white monk went behind him. He came from the feast at Berg Rhys's house, drenched with blood, with a gaping axe wound in his forehead. And he whispered, Denounce him, betray him, save his soul. Leave his body to the pyre, that his soul may be spared. Leave him to the slow torture of the rack, that his soul may have time to repent. Tord ran. All this fright of what was nothing in itself grew, when it so continually played on the soul, to an unspeakable terror. He wished to escape from it all. As he began to run, again thundered that deep, terrible voice which was God's. God himself hunted him with alarms that he should give up the murderer. Berg Rhys's crime seemed more detestable than ever to him. An unarmed man had been murdered, a man of God pierced with shining steel. It was like a defiance of the Lord of the world. And the murderer dared to live. He rejoiced in the sun's light and in the fruits of the earth, as if the Almighty's arm were too short to reach him. He stopped, clenched his fists, and howled out a threat. Then he ran like a madman from the wood down to the valley. Tord hardly needed to tell his errand. Instantly 10 peasants were ready to follow him. It was decided that Tord should go alone up to the cave, so that Berg's suspicions should not be aroused. But where he went, he should scatter peas, so that the peasants could find the way. When Tord came to the cave, the outlaw sat on the stone bench and sewed. The fire gave hardly any light, and the work seemed to go badly. The boy's heart swelled with pity. The splendid Berg Rhys seemed to him poor and unhappy, and the only thing he possessed, his life, should be taken from him. Tord began to weep. "What is it?" asked Berg. "Are you ill? Have you been frightened?" Then, for the first time, Tord spoke of his fear. "It was terrible in the wood. I heard ghosts and saw spectres. I saw white monks. It's death, boy. They crowded round me all the way up Broad Mountain. I ran, but they followed after and sang. Can I never be rid of the sound? What have I to do with them? I think they could go to one who needed it more." "Are you mad tonight, Tord?" Tord talked, hardly knowing what words he used. He was free from all shyness. The words streamed from his lips. "They are all white monks, white, pale as death. They all have blood on their cloaks. They drag their hoods down over their brows, but still the wound shines from under, the big red gaping wound from the blow of the axe. The big red gaping wound from the blow of the axe? Is it I who perhaps have struck it? Why shall I see it? The saints only know, Tord, said Berg Rhys, pale and with terrible earnestness, what it means that you see a wound from an axe. I killed the monk with a couple of knife thrusts. Tord stood trembling before Berg and wrung his hands. They demand you of me. They want to force me to betray you. Who, the monks? Yes, they, the monks. They show me visions. They show me her, Un. They show me the shining, sunny sea. They show me the fisherman's camping ground where there is dancing and merrymaking. I close my eyes, but I still see. Leave me in peace, I say. My friend is murdered, but he is not bad. Let me be, and I will talk to him so that he repents and atones. He shall confess his sin and go to Christ's grave. We will both go together to the places which are so holy that all sin is taken away from him who draws near them. What do the monks answer? Asked Berg. They want to have me saved. They want to have me on the rack and wheel. Shall I betray my dearest friend? I ask them, continued Tord. He is my world. He has saved me from the bear that had his paw on my throat. We have been cold together and suffered every want together. He has spread his bearskin over me when I was sick. I have carried wood and water for him. I have watched over him while he slept. I have fooled his enemies. Why do they think that I am one who will betray a friend? My friend will soon of his own accord go to the priest and confess. Then we will go together to the land of atonement. Berg listened earnestly, his eyes sharply searching Tord's face. You shall go to the priest and tell him the truth, he said. You need to be among people. Does that help me if I go alone? For your sin, death and all his spectres follow me. Do you not see how I shudder at you? You have lifted your hand against God himself. No crime is like yours. I think that I must rejoice when I see you on rack and wheel. It is well for him who can receive his punishment in this world and escapes the wrath to come. Why did you tell me of the just God? You compel me to betray you. Save me from that sin. Go to the priest. And he fell on his knees before Berg. The murderer laid his hand on his head and looked at him. He was measuring his sin against his friend's anguish, and it grew big and terrible before his soul. He saw himself at variance with the will which rules the world. Repentance entered his heart. Woe to me that I have done what I have done, he said. That which awaits me is too hard to meet voluntarily. If I give myself up to the priests, they will torture me for hours. They will roast me with slow fires. And is not this life of misery, which we lead in fear and want, penance enough? Have I not lost lands and home? Do I not live parted from friends and everything which makes a man's happiness? What more is required? When he spoke so, Tord sprang up, wild with terror. Can you repent? He cried. Can my words move your heart? Then come instantly. How could I believe that? Let us escape. There is still time. Berg Rhys sprang up, he too. You have done it, then? Yes, I have betrayed you. But come quickly. Come as you can repent. They will let us go. We shall escape them. The murderer bent down to the floor, where the battle axe of his ancestors lay at his feet. You son of a thief, he said, hissing out the words. I have trusted you and loved you. But when Tord saw him bend for the axe, he knew that it was now a question of his own life. He snatched his own axe from his belt and struck at Berg before he had time to raise himself. The edge cut through the whistling air, and sank in the bent head. Berg Reese fell head foremost to the floor. His body rolled after. Blood and brains spouted out. The axe fell from the wound. In the matted hair, Tord saw a big, red, gaping hole from the blow of the axe. The peasants came rushing in. They rejoiced and praised the deed. "You will win by this," they said to Tord. Tord looked down at his hands as if he saw there the fetters with which he had been dragged forward to kill him he loved. They were forged from nothing. Of the rush's green light, of the play of the shadows, of the song of the storm, of the rustling of the leaves, of dreams were they created. And he said aloud, "God is great." But again the old thought came to him. He fell on his knees beside the body and put his arm under his head. "Do him no harm," he said. "He repents. He is going to the Holy Sepulchre. He is not dead. He is not a prisoner. We were just ready to go when he fell. The white monk did not want him to repent, but God, the God of justice, loves repentance." He lay beside the body, talked to it, wept and begged the dead man to awake. The peasants arranged a bier. They wished to carry the peasant's body down to his house. They had respect for the dead and spoke softly in his presence. When they lifted him up on the bier, Tord rose, shook the hair back from his face, and said with a voice which shook with sobs, "Say to Un, who made Berg Reese a murderer, that he was killed by Tord the fisherman, whose father is a wrecker and whose mother is a witch, because he taught him that the foundation of the world is justice." The end. Thank you for listening. A nice cheery one to end with. Yeah, I really liked the writing in that and the descriptions. I thought that was really nice. Also, hey Ray Tracer, thank you very much for the resub. Welcome in. F indeed. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that. I thought that was great. Turns out the Scandies have got some good writers. Good job. Sweden, Norway, Denmark, all that lot. I guess probably the Finns as well, but I feel like Finns are not technically Scandinavian, are they? There was some translation weirdness. Oh, was there? What was the translation weirdness? If it's able to be condensed in a chat message. Excuse me. But yes. I enjoyed those stories. Those were fun. I won't be raiding over to anywhere tonight. I'm very tired all of a sudden. My eyes are like properly drooping. So yeah. I will not be raiding over. Yeah, I will. Yeah, do tell of the translation weirdness maybe on the Discord Proler. I'm interested to see what was different. But yeah, thank you all very much for being here. Here we go. Fir tree was probably a pine. Okay. Yeah, I assumed it would be a pine, not a fir, because yeah, pine trees are more obvious. Interesting. But yes, thank you all very much indeed for being here. Go take care of yourselves and those around you. I will not be back next week or the week after or the week after that. I will let you know when I'm around, basically. Sorry for being busy, but unfortunately that is life at the moment, which is good. But yes, thank you all very much for being here. Go take care of yourselves, and we shall see you again soon. Thank you and goodbye.